Hello, my name is Allison Engel. I'm an astrologer. I'm a mom. I work with feminine evolutionary consciousness, and I wanted to bring forth today an understanding of how astrology can help us understand our children and their inherent genius. There's a few placements that really point to the structures of this. And what can happen when we don't understand this Uranus placement is that this can be one of our biggest wounds. So in evolutionary astrology, this is a trauma signature. It's not just Uranus and all its glory and all its amazingnesses. What happens with Uranus is that our genius can also quickly outcast us. So the same thing that makes us unique and great, when not understood as its basic inherent value and trust system that we all share, it can separate us. That's why it's a trauma signature. This is where we come in to create chaos. And so to separate ourselves in order to awaken, but also to come into our most inherent valuable need and asset, which is our true self, our individual self, our individuation. So much of my process is, as soon as I figure something out, I give it to my children because it belongs to them, which is also Uranus. Sovereignty. Here, this is your basic human right to be an individual and to understand yourself and to have this right out of the gate. So when this is socially outcasted in children's chart, their unique expression is covered over by other behavioral complexes. And this is where it gets really interesting because Uranus is our nervous system. So this is creating a template when we're pressed too far outside of who we are and our value system, which is innate, that our nervous system gets frazzled and fried. And what happens is that we become outside of ourselves. We have to learn how to regroup. We have to learn to follow orders. We have to stay with the group, even though that isn't necessarily how we can get our needs met. So it's really important that children understand this, but not just children. It's important for parents to understand this, that there is something innate and genius about all of us. And what sets this apart from the basic understanding of the mind is that this is a higher appreciation of intellect or mind. So if we're really just trying to teach children on the level of mind and we're not opening them out into their personal genius, then we're going to create issues. So that curiosity of the mind, that curiosity to take in information and to be able to move, the difference between being able to regurgitate facts, take in information, is the function of Uranus. Uranus happens at lightning speed. Uranus knows and is aware when there's something that it needs to know, something that it's thirst quenchingly hungry for, something that is higher than it, that it wants to bring in to itself, to understand itself. And if we don't have this built into the intellectual process with children, They're going to do what Uranus does at a different behavioral function, and that is rebel. And that is get really upset and try and push off of societal norms, try and push off of other people in the family. So different house placements make this a more challenging behavioral aspect because it is unique. So this trauma signature is challenging to integrate at a later day. So we want to keep this kind of open because this level of awareness, what Uranus is all about is these little data bites, right? These little intellectual currents that come in as intel or insight into what's going to open out next. The freedom to have that intellectual atmosphere in the child's life is so important for them to be able to follow through on those instincts, actually, and to be able to hold that process for themselves, to allow it to go where it needs to go, where it wants to go, because this is the most individual placement. So why this is challenging at an evolutionary astrology level of consciousness is because this trauma signature can also be what the trauma was in past lives. So why the nervous system gets frayed is because there's so much more than just this timeline. So it's really about quantum physics, but the quantum field. So the quantum field, one of my personal favorite understanding of it is timelines, and why it's so important to this Uranian archetype is because we're dealing with string theory, right? Okay? We're dealing with strings of data, okay? So if you want to think of this as Wi-Fi bandwidth, something that connects us. This thing that is Uranus within us either separates us or connects us. When we're allowed to have it right out of the gate, we are connected to ourselves, our individuation, and it connects us with other people's Uranus because they're allowed to be themselves too. If not, we're isolated. So if we come into this lifetime with a string of complex trauma from a past life, it's going to almost always resurface. It's a trauma wound. So what can happen is if we don't understand the complexity of Uranus placement, we come in where we understand this is going to happen, but we don't have an awareness of it. It's going to resurge, and it's going to get more complex and more layered over and more complex to heal or fix at a later date. So if we have an understanding of this basic structure of Uranus, this resurgence of this energy, we can become aware of it and hold an awareness right from the get-go. Otherwise, it's going to get more complex. So just understand that we already came in with this string theory, this very complex Uranus issue that connects us to other timelines, always other timelines. And will create new timelines if what Uranus also is, the awareness that holds all of the strings, is not fully intact. The awareness is what Uranus heals to. The awareness of self. The awareness of a nervous system. The awareness of a need. The awareness for when a need surfaces, I can take care of that by myself because I have that skill set. I have that need recognition. I know what I'm doing. But as parents, we're doing this for our children with the awareness of this Uranus placement. So, if you understand this is how trauma works, the string theory, once it's wrapped in awareness with the architecture of space-time and through the zodiac and the mechanisms of the quantum field, this awareness allows all this shadow work and all these complexities to evolve and open themselves out. So it's happened a lot to me that one of my kids will get a necklace all messed up and all tangled. And I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be annoying. But I'm so Uranian that I don't actually pay attention to it, right? Like, I'm not actually looking at the necklace. Like, my hands are doing, my attention is somewhere else. I'm just the awareness of this complex string being tangled. And if I continue to play with it, it's going to open out, always. It always does. I don't want to do the thing. I don't want to play with the necklace. It's annoying that it even happens. It looks complex. But if I just continue to play with it, and I'm paying attention somewhere else, in true Uranian value, it unravels itself. So this is what happens with my clientele and with my children. When we're holding space for these complex issues to unravel themselves, we can point to things, notice them, become aware of them, and then they unravel. It's magic, but we're also experiencing this in a day-to-day function through the zodiac. So the zodiac kind of has its way with us as individuals. We have to just surrender and submit and trust in that guidance system and nurturing ourselves through that process also. I think there are a couple more points that I wanted to make in the case of children and their Uranus placements. So this access to their genius can be their most biggest struggle behaviorally of getting in touch with. But it also cuts through the noise of what they're going to bring forth. That their intellect is going to match at the right time and allowing this its own process. It's like a higher self, right? As we individuate, we bring in more of our higher self. That's why it's like more of us as individuals that bring our unique genius. Here, just give it to the kids. It's just, this is yours. You belong to yourself. This is the truth of human technology. Instead of human conditioning, we're all together in this. So this complex networking unites us or divides us. I think another important aspect of this is that it doesn't change when we get older. It evolves, which is the purpose of Uranus, which is why we come in with this trauma signature and this challenging neural networking with our families, that we're less evolved, less nurturing, less aware of our inherent trust and need system, and we were in a process of de-evolution, but right now we're giving this to our children right out of the gate, and that is kind of our responsibility to grow up in a new way that isn't limited or isn't limiting themselves to themselves, but allowing them direct access to the thing that unites us all in our very complex webbing and string theory, which is this is basic human function. This is something that connects us with the globe, is the awareness of genius, the awareness of ourselves, the awareness of this inherent trust and value system that we can give to our children. Otherwise, they're going to be unraveling it when they're 50, 60. I work with women in their 70s who still don't trust themselves, who still don't understand who they are. And this is just not good enough for me as a parent. And I'm hoping that it's not something that's good enough for you as a parent either. So this was fun. More to come. So much more. Thanks, guys.